Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome back to another episode. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the new American dream. And why is it the new American dream? Well, simply because the American dream as we know it cannot be found in the United States of America anymore. In fact, as the great George Carlin used to put it, in order for you to believe in the American dream, you have to be asleep.
Bruh.
But what is the American dream? What exactly does it consist of? Well, basically what the American dream consisted of was the fact that you got to live in the freest country in the world. Again, USA, freedom, one goes with the other. Obviously, living in the greatest country in the world, it would include a better quality of life, a better culture, cleaner streets, better lifestyle, better access to better jobs, more money, and I could go on and on. I think most of the people in the audience out there, you guys know exactly what the American dream is. In fact, the USA still receives tons of immigrants coming into the USA seeking these things. But why is it that so many Americans are leaving the USA these days? Why is it that so many Americans out there, including myself, do not feel like the American dream exists anymore in the USA? In fact, I'll just go off by my own experience. Ever since I've been in Mexico over 6 years now, I have realized that the American dream is alive and well. It's just not in the USA anymore. It's now south of the border. It's in Mexico. On this channel, we talk about Mexico because I am an American who lives in Mexico. And so for those of you new out there that have never seen this channel before, basically what I do on this channel is that I share my own point of view as to what it is to live out here in Mexico as a foreigner. Basically, what it seems that most Americans are looking for when moving to Mexico is that they are just looking for the things that they cannot find in the USA anymore. I myself am only first generation American. Both of my parents left communist Cuba. In fact, most of my family left Cuba at some point either before the communist regime took over or after. Regardless, my family is very familiar to live in a country in which you lose all of your freedoms and you're living in basically destitute squalor and have no rights whatsoever, like no right to freedom of speech, no right to defend yourself, and I could go on and on. So my parents, they came from Cuba back in the late 60s and 70s, and like I was saying, I had family that came even before, Fidel Castro took over. And both my parents, they met and fell in love in Miami, Florida. And then soon after that, little Jose popped out, and I was born in 1981. So I was basically born and raised in the USA in the 80s, in the 90s. And so back then, the USA was basically still, the best place to be. It was still full of freedom and so on and so forth. In fact, both my parents were very proud to be American. They were obviously very proud to be Cuban, and they never ever wanted to leave Cuba. They just had to leave Cuba. So it was kind of like a bittersweet situation for them when they had to leave Cuba and they had to make a new life for themselves in the USA. Now, again, once they got to the USA and they started living their lives, eventually they met, started a family, and and then obviously started to live the American dream. Well, they were very happy and very grateful that they were able to do that in the USA, especially as the years went on and the situation in their home country of Cuba just kept getting worse and worse. So it was a constant comparison that no matter how bad things were getting in the USA, they were never bad. They were always pretty awesome and pretty good compared to what it was in their homeland. And me and my sister, both, born in the USA, we were born to parents that were immigrants, and we, again, lived a very hard life. We basically had to, tie up our bootstraps, and we were working from a very young age. We grew up in a Latino household, so we grew up with a lot of, ideals that, we would find out here in Mexico, such as, working hard, discipline, morals, respect for your elders, and I could go on and on that. But at the end of the day, we grew up a certain way in the USA, and we were expecting a certain outcome from being born and raised in the USA, and we were expecting to have an amazing future ahead of us because we both spoke, English and Spanish. On top of that, we were raised, to be disciplined and to work hard and to be very appreciative and grateful for everything we had. But as the years went on and we started to graduate college, enter the workforce, and so on and so forth, and the years continued to go on into the early 2000s, mid 2010s, and where we are now, well, things dramatically changed. Things have gone from bad to worse. And so as time has gone on, and again, the USA has been spiraling out of control, and I myself have, learned a lot from my family members and other Cubans that have escaped Cuba. Well, as everything has been starting to develop in the USA, I quickly realized that, we were not heading in the right direction. So over 6 years ago, I was already decided, mentally that I needed to leave the USA. I just was never ready. I never had the resources. There was always an excuse. There was always a reason as to why I never left the USA. All right. I was basically scared. I'm not going to lie. Again, for some of you guys that know my full story, you guys know I basically had a rough period of my life. I had a rough time, arrested in Texas under false pretenses, and it basically spiraled my life out of control. And so after all that happened, I was just trying to get back on my feet again, and it basically seemed almost impossible. I didn't have much of a choice anymore, so I had to leave. Okay, and I felt just like my parents felt when they had to leave Cuba to come to the USA. It was very bittersweet. But the longer I was here in Mexico, well, the better my life got, the happier I got, the more grateful I got for being in Mexico. And obviously, I still keep tabs and I still keep an eye on what's going on in the USA. So obviously, the longer I'm here, the more happy and grateful I am to be here and not be in the USA. Again, if I would have been in the USA the last 6 years, it would be a miracle if I would be alive still today to even talk to you guys or make even videos, talking about anything, period, end of story. I've always said it, and I really still feel this way, that moving to Mexico saved my life, all right? So with all that being said, I was already thinking to myself many years ago, before I actually made the move, that I needed to leave. And eventually, it wasn't until I had a horrible life event happen to me that I had no other choice but to leave. And so this is what brings me to today's video and why I'm making today's video, because the reality is that, by the time you're watching this, we would be about 1 week removed or further, because I don't know when you're going to be watching this. You might be watching this, many months or years into the future. But the point I'm making is that very recently, we had a horrible situation happen in the USA where it was basically a giant wake-up call to a lot of people out there that live in the United States at the moment. Because up until now, yeah, we know that things have been, basically snowballing and getting worse each and every day. But it wasn't until that one person out there shot the ex-President Trump and gave him a new earring, that's when things really started to get out of hand. Because at that moment in time, basically everyone quickly realized, that things could go really bad really quickly, literally in the blink of an eye. All right. And before you know it, you might not ever be able to leave the country. All right. Let alone, start a future or a better life elsewhere. So basically, this is why I decided to make this video and talk about this video, because the reality is that there's many people out there in the audience right now that have been constantly contemplating and planning and trying to figure out how they're going to get out of the USA, and yet they haven't pulled the trigger yet, pun intended. Bruh. And because of that, well, they see themselves basically just stuck, and they basically see this whole idea as something that's never going to happen. And then all of a sudden, something really bad, really drastic happens in your country, okay? Basically, is giving you a wake-up call that you have to make a decision. It's either now or never, all right? And so I know a lot of people out there, they're still planning on figuring out what they're going to do. But as the old saying goes, either shit or get off the pot, All right, so basically make a decision or a decision will be made for you. And most of the time, that decision that's made for you is not the decision you want to be made. So with that said, you still have the power, you still have the ability to make this decision for yourself. You still have the ability to leave the USA. You still have the ability to go elsewhere and start from scratch, start anew, all right, and basically build a better life for you and your family before it's too late. And I think this is a major problem for a lot of Americans out there, is just the fact that, well, the USA and being an American, you've always been number one at the very, very top. You, again, living in the best and greatest country in the world. So now all of a sudden you have to leave that scenario. You have to leave that situation and you have to move to another country. You're basically a rock bottom, especially when you arrive in the new country, and you have to rebuild everything. Now, for a lot of you guys, it's going to be a lot easier than others. You know, some of you guys out there, you have a remote job that you can just basically transfer down south to wherever you're living and you'll be totally fine. Or you have an online business or whatever it is, you know, retirement, you know, you're probably already retired. So for a lot of you guys, it's basically just moving. That's it. And learning some Spanish or learning whatever language you're going to learn. But that's about it. But for a lot of people in the audience, they see themselves helpless, especially if you are a low-level worker, you know, working at some low-level, low-skilled job. Look, I myself used to be a cook, a chef, whatever you want to call me, okay? But I used to do that for the longest time. That was my career. That was my chosen life path. And as the years went on, I quickly realized, oh man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it all the way to retirement doing this job. What am I going to do? So I totally get it. You know, there's a lot of people out there in the audience right now that basically feel like their hands are tied. There's no way that they can do a digital nomad job. The only thing that they know how to do is some physical work. They don't even know another language. And I can go on and on. So all of a sudden, before you know it, the hurdles, they just, you know, keep getting bigger and more difficult to cross. And so before you know it, this whole idea of moving to Mexico or moving somewhere else is basically just a figment of your imagination. It's basically a dream, an American dream that you're never going to be able to attain. But the reality is that you will be able to attain it. It's all about changing your mentality, okay? It's all about changing your way of viewing things. For example, look at how many immigrants cross into the USA all the time. Okay, not just now, but since the beginning of time. Okay, since, you know, the USA has been a country, this has been a thing. All right, and every single time that there's a huge wave of immigrants, okay, coming into the USA, most of them don't speak English. Most of them don't know anything about the culture. No, they don't know nothing. Some of them don't even have skills that can translate well to the USA. In fact, some people come from very developed countries that have had their own political turmoil. They might be a doctor or a lawyer or someone that's really, really, you know, highly skilled and educated in their home country, and now they got to come to the USA and basically settle to work at McDonald's or even be a taxi driver. So what makes you think out there that you are better than any one of these other immigrants? Okay, the reality is that if you are coming out here, okay, and you are escaping a really bad situation at the moment, well, then that means that you have to make sacrifices, all right? And some of those sacrifices mean that you have to come out here and you got to lower your standards. You got to work extremely hard to learn another language, to learn another culture, to basically embrace another country. A country that is basically opening up their arms and allowing you to come over here to their country and allowing you to participate within the country itself, you know, whether it's economically or, you know, culturally or whatever it is. The point is that you are now a guest in this country, okay? So I know there's a lot of people out there that they just don't want to call themselves an immigrant or a foreigner, and they want to remain being called an expat. You're going to have a completely different way of viewing things. But for everyone else out there, in fact, the majority of the audience out there, you are basically looking for a solution, a way out of the horrible situation that you're in, or the horrible situation that's going to arise. Because again, after what just happened very recently, it only seems like things are just spiraling out of control and only going to keep getting worse and worse before they get any better. And so a lot of people out there in the audience that are looking for a solution, well, you guys are already sick and tired of your own culture. You guys are sick and tired of everything that is America. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. It doesn't matter what your political leanings are, if any at all. It really doesn't matter. Most people in the USA right now are sick and tired of being sick and tired, and you're looking for a solution. And so for a lot of people that are thinking of moving out here to Mexico, for example, well, you guys are already embracing the new culture. You cannot wait to embrace and live in a brand new culture. But it's more than just living out here. It's more than just assimilating. Okay, it's really, you are now living in a completely different country. You're now going to have to really, again, do what immigrants have done since the beginning of time. Doesn't matter what country they've come into. Again, I'm just using the USA because that's the easiest, example that I can use for most of you guys out there, because again, in the USA, we are a land of immigrants, and so it's a lot easier for you to understand the whole immigrant mentality and situation. The thing that's difficult to wrap your head around is the fact that now you are the immigrant, now you are the foreigner, now you are the one that's fleeing, okay, a really bad situation in your home country. Now it has flipped the complete opposite. In fact, now that you're coming into Mexico, it's even the Mexicans that are living out here in Mexico, they are dumbfounded and they don't understand, why it is that you're leaving the USA. Because for many people around the world, they still view the USA as the greatest country in the world and the best place, for you to basically live your life and have a higher quality of life. But the reality is that couldn't be any further from the truth. For many people out there in the audience, you know that the whole idea of freedom in the USA is almost non-existent anymore. The whole idea of having a better quality of life, again, that can be found elsewhere in most countries around the world, anywhere but the USA. You guys already know, if you're living in the USA still, you are overworked, overstressed, you are, probably overweight. It's over everything, okay? You're basically over it all, okay? You're over it, okay? You're done.
We are sick and tired of being sick and tired.
But you already see it all the time. If you want to eat healthy, it's going to cost you more. If you want a better lifestyle, it's going to cost you more. And then on top of that, you have no ability to really make more money. But for many people out there, you guys are just looking for a better quality of life, okay? It's not even about the work. You're willing to work hard. You're willing to work harder than you're working right now, as long as it can guarantee you a better quality of life. And it might not even be for you. It might be for your family. Many of you people out there have a family, have kids. You guys are raising your children in an environment you don't want to raise them in. You do not have any faith in the future of your country. You are worried about the direction things are going. So you guys are looking for a solution now before it's too late. And so that's why a lot of you guys out there are sacrificing yourself, okay? Just like many immigrants have sacrificed themselves to enter the USA. Well, now you are sacrificing yourselves in order to create a better life and have more opportunities for your own kids. So for example, many of you guys out there that are now coming out here to Mexico with your families and your kids and everything like that, you are realizing that you are giving them better opportunities to grow. You're giving them more tools. You're preparing themselves much better here in Mexico than you would be able to do so in the USA. And that's just the reality of it. And in fact, many immigrants are now choosing to stay in Mexico or come to Mexico instead of going into the USA. Because at the end of the day, what most people want is freedom. What most people want is peace. All right, they want to be able to have a roof over their head. They want to be able to have a job or be able to create a job, aka a small business. They want better opportunities for them and their own families. Okay, and these are things that you just cannot find in the USA anymore. It's just really, really difficult to find. And because of that, many of you guys out there, you guys are just tired of fighting. You guys are tired of living in such a toxic environment. You guys just want a better life for yourself. You know, the way I see it is that there are two types of Americans at the moment. You know, there are Americans that love freedom and those that hate freedom. The ones that love real freedom, well, they're basically suffering in the USA right now. And when they come to a country like Mexico, they basically feel like a giant weight has been lifted off of their back and they can finally breathe and finally live their life in peace. But there's a lot of other Americans out there that, well, the whole idea of living in Mexico is something that's insane to them. They can't even fathom the idea of living in Mexico because they cannot handle real freedom. They cannot handle living in a place without so many rules and regulations. The reality is that many Americans, they love control. They love having all these rules and regulations and law and order and all that stuff that comes with it. So they put up with all the things that are going on in the USA because they want to maintain that level of comfort. And so that's why there's many people that eventually, you know, they leave the USA for whatever reason they leave. You know, again, oh, Trump got elected, I'm leaving. Oh, Biden got elected, I'm leaving. And then they come out to Mexico and then they end up leaving here before that president's term is even over, simply because they can't handle the fact that Mexico is nothing like the USA when it comes to, you know, rules and regulations and laws and all that stuff. Again, I've said it multiple times here on the channel. People out here in Mexico, they live in anarchy, all right? And they have been living like that for a very long time. So they have already kind of developed a system around that. And if you are a real hardcore, old school American, well, I mean, that's just music to your ears. The fact that you get to live out here and live your life. And as long as you are not directly hurting anyone else, well, you get to do basically whatever you want, which is, again, the way I enjoy living life. And it's not for everybody. A lot of people, you know, that come out to Mexico are constantly complaining as to why XYZ person is not getting in trouble. Why aren't, you know, these streets clean? You know, why are they not cutting the grass on their yard, you know, when they have to? Whatever it is, you know, they're just constantly living in that mentality and in that world that they left in the USA, and eventually they can't handle it and move back home. But for those of you guys out there that all you want is the freedom to do whatever it is you want to do, whatever it is, you know, meaning you get to conduct the business you want to conduct, you get to raise your kids the way you want to raise them, you get to eat whatever it is you want to eat. Basically, the fact that you get to live your life however you want to live it without anyone out there telling you it's wrong or that you are not doing it right, or even worse, basically calling the authorities on you for not following XYZ rule or breaking whatever arbitrary law that doesn't even, you know, make sense. But at the end of the day, the reason I'm really making this video is just because if you thought what happened this past weekend on July 13th was bad, expect so much worse to be coming down the pike. This is something that I've been talking about for years and years and years. And as each year passes and things keep getting worse, I myself don't feel as crazy anymore as I used to when I used to say a lot of these things, you know, 6, 7, 8 years ago. A lot of people thought, hey, bro, you're kind of nuts. You know, what are you talking about? Those things will never happen. And then here we are 8 years later, and all of these things are happening in one shape, form, or another, or they already happened. And now I'm not so nuts anymore. But still, there's tons of people out there that still refuse to even see what's right in front of their eyes. There's many people out there that are still living in denial, and they just don't want to accept what the reality of the situation is. Instead of taking responsibility for their lives and their own actions, they just sit back and they wait for a solution to just come out of the sky. You know, basically they want someone to have a solution for them. They want other people to fix those problems. They don't want to just simply take control of their own lives and create the solution that they desperately want and need. So for those of you out there in the audience that are sick and tired of being sick and tired, and you finally want to take responsibility for your own life and make the decision that you've been meaning to make for the longest time, well, what are you waiting for? Start figuring out what it is you need to do in order to get yourself out of the horrible situation you're in. If you need to learn Spanish, learn Spanish. If you need to get a job that you can do while you're living abroad. Okay? If you need more money so you can have a bigger cushion so that you can leave the country and you can have a better go at it, once you leave the country, well, then do that. Whatever it is you got to do it. Start doing it. Stop waiting. Things are not going to get any better. All right? And even if they do get better, well, none of these things that you've done in preparation to get out of the country are going to come as, wasted time. So again, just realize that at the end of the day, you need to basically figure out what it is you actually want out of your life. Okay? So again, if you want freedom, if you want a better quality of life, if you want to experience and live in a new culture, if you want to be smiling all the time and in a good mood, just like most Mexicans are, instead of being in a crappy mood and being in a toxic environment, well, again, you already know what you got to do. If you don't know what you got to do, then I highly suggest that you check out the rest of my channel. Check out my website. Check out all the free information that I have, all the resources that I have available for you for free so that you can do your homework, all right? And you can figure out what it is you need to do, how to do it, when to do it, and start doing it. On this channel, I don't believe in excuses. I believe in solutions. And that's what I try to provide for you guys. In fact, at this point, a lot of the videos that I make are more like motivation, inspiration, all right? Basically, that last kick in the butt that you need in order to make it happen. Will it be easy? No, it won't. Will it be worth it? Yes, it will. So with all that being said, guys, I just want to give a big shout out to every single one of you guys out there in the audience. Whether you're a new subscriber or an old subscriber, shout out to you. Shout out to every single one of you guys that is a patron, a member on YouTube, sends me a few bucks here or there. Or again, you just simply share a video, watch an ad, leave a thumbs up, whatever it is you do. Really greatly appreciate you. All right. And again, special shout out to those out there in the audience that is always leaving a comment, whether you're leaving a question for me to answer or someone else to answer, or you're answering someone else's concerns or questions in the comment section or whatever it is you're doing. Again, shout out to all of you guys. All right. Because I really do not like those people out there that want to keep a lot of this information that I like to provide on my channel, on my website, that keep that information behind a paywall, or they just don't want to give it up at all because they don't want their brethren to come out here to Mexico. But I'm not like that at all. All right. I know there's a lot of bad apples out there, but I'm not trying to stop anyone from coming out here. The bad apples, once they make it to Mexico, eventually, well, they turn into, apple juice, and then they end up going back, all right? Most of the people that end up coming out here, they end up living their best life, and they actually end up contributing and end up being an integral part of Mexican society and the Mexican economy and so on and so forth. And that's what I try to do out here on this channel. I try to mentally prepare you guys as best as possible so when you do come out here, you're actually a success and you're just not coming out here on a whim, out of desperation, and then quickly finding your way back where you came from and in an even worse situation because now you basically spent all your resources on moving to another country, hating it, and then whatever little resources you had left, you had to move back to the USA and then be in an even worse situation than you started out with. So what I like to do on this channel is that I like to try to mentally prepare you guys out there in the audience, and I try to prepare you guys with as much information and knowledge as you can basically keep inside your head. And for those of you guys that have a bad memory like me for whatever reason, well, to start taking notes, all right, and start getting your game plan ready and stop thinking about it and start doing something about it. And so that's why those of you guys out there in the audience that help out this show, whether you're sending a few bucks or you're helping people out in the comments, we're all helping each other out, okay, in whatever capacity we can. And again, I really want to give a big extra thank you to every single one of you guys out there in the audience because, well, you know exactly what you do, and I really appreciate you guys, and thank you so much for watching this video all the way through. And with that being said, you already know the deal, guys. If you like this kind of content, don't forget to please like, please subscribe, please share, please hit the bell icon. But more importantly than anything else, please stay awesome. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.